Alright, so it's been a week since Breath of the Wild came out, and I beat it. Through a week of doing basically nothing but playing Breath of the Wild, but yeah, I finished it, so figured I'd do what all the cool kids on YouTube do and give my thoughts. And I'll just warn you right now, I am talking about the entire game, so there are going to be spoilers, and I can't guarantee that there's going to be a clean cutoff point. So, just overall warning. Okay. I got the Wii U version of the game because, I don't have $300 to buy a Switch. Alright, so, game starts. I really like the opening of this game. Like, the very simple structure of, explore the 4 shrines, get the runes that are in them, talk to the old man, learn about hunting, cooking food together, roasting it, temperatures. It's a very smooth way to introduce the player to the core mechanics of the game. And right off the bat, they give you all of the tools that you're going to be using for the rest of the game. You're not getting weapons in the dungeons. You start off with these runes that are infinite use, and dropping bombs, using magnets, freezing things in place, creating water pillars, which is noticeably less useful than all the other ones, but right off the bat to allow you to do anything once you're done with that. And also right off the bat, you just tell this game looks gorgeous. Like, again, I played the Wii U version. Even on the Wii U, this game looks beautiful. I love the art style. I love the aesthetics. There's really good draw distance, like when you're up in a tower looking over the surroundings. You can see a good chunk of Hyrule, and if you zoom in with the Sheikah slate, you can tell that a lot of it is low poly once you get to the distance, but it does look good. And I was actually surprised. It runs really well on the Wii U. I ran into a couple issues, like one time a tree just faded in front of me. And there was one time I shot a guy with a bomb arrow, knocked him off a perch, and the game froze for 10 seconds to figure out what was going on. I was actually really scared that the game, crashed outright. But the music is not all that good, honestly. It goes for a completely different style than other Zelda games. Other Zelda games treat music as, music in a video game would. But this one goes for, a very minimalist style. It's meant to be sort of ambient, and I guess it works, but it means that there's nothing memorable in it. The only songs I can remember are, the piano riff, when a guardian is chasing you, and that's just because it played so many times. And the couple times I heard a riff, or not a riff, but a segment of a song from a previous Zelda game, I heard the Hyrule Castle theme from Link to the Past, or Zelda's Lullaby, or Epona's song, things like that. Besides that, the world, once you finish the plateau at the beginning of the game and you go off into the main world, it's just so fun to explore. It's very vertical. There's a lot of things to climb, and climbing things is really fun. But that's actually kind of weird. They make, climbing things such a big part of the game, but the whole time I was expecting, is there going to be, a hookshot somewhere in the game? And there never is. You never get a hookshot or any sort of equivalent, and that feels like a massive a waste. It would have been a lot of fun to have it in these sorts of worlds. But, you can't ascend quickly like that, but you can descend with the paraglider, and that's fun. Get to the top of a cliff or a mountain or a tower, and then just glide your way over all of the obstacles. Save yourself stamina. If the wind is with you, you're going to go fast. It's handy. But, you do have to watch out for the weather, and I think they went a little bit overboard. Sometimes the weather doesn't matter. Oh, it's daytime, oh, it's nighttime. That's fine. Nighttime, all nighttime does is it makes a couple certain enemies appear. Skeletons will climb out of the ground to attack you. They're not hard to kill, but sort of just ran past them anyway. And then during the day, it's it's sunny. It's sunny. It's cloudy. That doesn't matter in the slightest. But it rains And if it's raining, then you can't climb at all. And since the world is designed around climbing so much, you just completely got yourself limited. And if there's a thunderstorm, you can't use a good chunk of your items because despite the fact that you are most of the time not even close to the tallest thing, lightning will always target you if you have anything metallic on you, and frankly, I think that's kind of stupid. And then there's also like a blood moon mechanic where like every couple of nights it's a blood moon, and that makes enemies more powerful, I guess. I wasn't really sure what it did. Okay, but you're exploring the world, just sort of, looking around, looking at the trees, picking up food. You'll come across shrines pretty quickly, and if you don't, you get a shrine locator like right at the beginning of the game that just points you in the right direction whenever you're near one. And I love the placement of these things because you're just walking along a main path, going to your main destination, and your shrine indicator is beeping. So it gives you a perfect reason to just veer from the path, off the main path a little bit. Go solve a quick puzzle. It's a lot of fun to solve them. They're just really small puzzles. It makes you feel kind of smart, or it's just a quick little distraction, and then you get a useful item out of it. Maybe a weapon or a shield if you're lucky. Some of the shrines have it. And then you're back on your way. That was one of my favorite things about Wind Waker. You were sailing to your next destination, you passed by an island, and you thought, that looks interesting. You'd take a quick detour, figure it out. Might be a great fairy fountain. And there's so many shrines in the game. Like, I think I heard there's over 100 of them. I only visited 40 of the game. But that means that they're placed all over the place. So you basically always have a chance to find them. And they make warp points for fast travel, so having them around is also very convenient. But the other thing you'll do in the world is you'll come across like enemy camps or maybe just like a loose enemy. And hey, you should fight them. No, you shouldn't. Don't fight enemies. For a couple of reasons. First off, your weapons are going to break. That's a new mechanic for this game. If you use items too much, they break. I don't like this. Because especially at the beginning of the game, it's like, oh, damn it, my tree branch broke. Now I'm completely defenseless. I gotta hope I can find another item. Or later in the game, it's like, alright, I got this good weapon. I've been using it. It's durable. I've been using it for a while. But oh no, now it's gone. And I have to settle for something else. So it's just, you don't want to waste time with enemies that are just wandering around on the path. Because you're just going to hurt your items. Second, they don't really give you that useful stuff. Like, there's no heart drops in the game. They don't drop rupees. Maybe sometimes they'll drop a weapon, but most of the time it's a worse weapon than what you have, and your inventory can't fit anymore. So it's not useful for that. They'll drop monster parts, but those are in no short supply, so if you need to make elixirs, you got more than enough of them. And of course, every enemy in the game hits like a fucking truck. Like, I'm not kidding. Throughout, like, the entire game, end of the game, every single enemy was a serious threat, because it was like 2 or 3 hits, and that would take out your health bar, no matter where you are in the game, how many hearts you have, unless you, I guess, really went out of your way to grind shrines to get a bunch of heart containers. And the whole game is hard. And I that's the thing I know a lot of people like, oh, it's a hard game. It's going to take me longer to beat it. I like a challenge. Okay, I'm not really that kind of way. If it's got to be one or the other, I prefer a game to be easy rather than hard. And honestly, since this is a thing everyone always said, when I heard the reports, like, oh, I think Polygon said, like, this is the hardest Zelda game ever. First off, that's not true, because Zelda 2 still exists. But I was like, okay, this is just something they say about every single 3D Zelda game. It's like, oh, this is the hardest one. And this time they weren't kidding. But it doesn't, I guess it feels like more challenging. You do have to do more during, like, boss fights. So it is more challenging in that. But they also hit so goddamn hard. So it feels like it's too much, honestly. The combat difficulty feels like it's too much. Alright, so the game is non-linear. That's sort of like the big selling point of the game. It's open world. Not real. Honestly, it worried me a bit. It's not really my thing, but I found myself enjoying it a lot. Like I said, I really enjoyed just exploring the world, wandering around, finding shrines or other items. And one of the things I think, like the treehouse after the game was like given name Breath of the Wild coming to the Switch, and then they showed they had like a treehouse stream after E3 last year. And I think like one of the reports that came out of that was like, yeah, as soon as the game starts, you can go fight Ganon. I don't think you can. Nothing's stopping you from going to Hyrule Castle, but I really don't think you could beat Ganon at the beginning of the game. I really don't think it's possible. I want to see someone see. Like, I'm actually really excited for SGDQ this year because there's probably going to be a Breath of the Wild speedrun, and I want to see how that works, because this game feels like you could just break it. Even just playing the game normally like I did, I felt like I was breaking it. Like one of the dungeons, I felt like I was solving it in a way that wasn't supposed to be solved. One of the towers, I cheated my way up. I hear game testers do find that kind of stuff, and the game developers do know it, so I'm happy that they left it in. They weren't like, no, you have to do it this one specific way. I'm happy that they gave me the freedom to sort of be an asshole about it. But the fact that the game is non-linear, you can do things in any order you want. Sort of, temperature is sort of a problem. You can't go to like the icy areas right at the beginning of the game because you don't have sufficient clothing to deal with it. I mean, I guess you could like get the warm doublet at the beginning of the game if you knew how to do it, or you could and then like cook a meal maybe, but then it wouldn't last long. I don't know, stuff like that. But it feels like the dungeons, the real meat of the game, wasn't designed around that open world, because without a doubt, the journey to get into the dungeons themselves and the boss, some of them are noticeably more or less difficult than the others. So it feels like they were designed to be like linearly done. Like there's a specific order to it that the game did not make any indication to let you know. So if you're unlucky, like a lot of people have been, you may end up going to the Gerudo Desert first and doing that one and suffering like I did. So yeah, alright, so Gerudo Desert. First off, it's one of the locations where you have to worry about temperature. How do you do it? By paying 600 rupees. That's a lot of money, especially if you go there first, to disguise yourself as a girl to be able to get into the town at all. And it gives you a really shitty defense. Like your pants, your shirt, and your headwear all have their own defense values. And the female disguise that is not the only way, but is the way the game presents you to deal with the heat, has 1 defense point on each of those. So you're going to have 3 in total. That's really little, really not any at all. Then there's then in order to get the means to get to the Divine Beast, you have to go to the Yiga clan thieves hideout. And getting there isn't a problem, but actually getting through the hideout is a pain, because you have to rely on stealth. And that's not... I can do stealth, 3 Metal Gear games down. But the enemies in this game are really good. Like, they can see you from really far. They can hear you really well. Remind me to get back to that when I talk about the Zoras. And honestly, stealth, it's hardly even recommended. I didn't even realize until the end of the game, like, there is actually, like, a stealth hit. Like, if you can sneak up behind someone, you can pretty much do a stealth kill. I didn't realize that. So for the most of the game, I was like, okay, there's no point to stealth, because it's just so hard to do. But you gotta do it in the Yiga clan hideout, and the best thing I found is, like, if you can sneak past a couple of the guys, you can get up, like, on a ladder, get up to the roof, and just sneak your way over everyone where they don't notice you. Something seems wrong when the enemies in just an ordinary open world game are better at stealth than the enemies in a stealth game. Although, if enemies were this good in Metal Gear, I'd be fucked. Okay, yeah, getting to the Divine Beast. You have to chase it down on a sand seal, and it's tugging you behind it, and you have to shoot. You have to shoot its feet with bomb arrows. That's not hard. The problem is that the whole time the Divine Beast is shooting down lightning at you, and the only way you can avoid it is if you have to stay close to someone else because they have a helm that deflects lightning. And it's not like you're walking, you're on vehicles that you don't have much control over. So actually trying to stay close to her is really hard, and just getting into the Divine Beast is a real pain. Then once you're in there, you find out this game has a different approach to dungeons than other Zelda games. You know, other games would mix together killing enemies, solving puzzles, that kind of stuff. There are hardly any enemies in the dungeons. It is all puzzle solving. And all of the puzzles are they're all the exact same puzzle, honestly. Actually, in hindsight, that's actually really bad. When you get the map to each of the dungeons, which they point you to at the beginning because you are going to need it, they give you control over part of the Divine Beast, like you can transform it. And that's a red flag right there to any Zelda fan. It's like, okay, it's every dungeon is the Water Temple, where you have to worry about whether you can get into a certain area if the dungeon is at a certain phase. And in one respect, it's not so bad here because you can just go to the map and arrange it any way you want at any time. So you don't have to backtrack to a specific place to change the water level. That's not a thing in this game, but as an example. But they're a lot more complex and really difficult. Like, I don't remember the names of any of the Divine Beasts, but the Gerudo one. Was I saying Goron this whole time? I don't remember. Gerudo. The idea is it has like 3 cylinders inside of it, and you rotate all of them. And whether or not they're rotated in a certain way dictates whether you can get into offshoot rooms. And this took me so long to figure it out. Like, it took me like at least an hour before I finally finished the dungeon. And part of it, like, I felt like I was cheating. Like, I would get up next to a platform on one of the cylinders, start rotating it, and just let it sort of push me up. And I guess that's the way they intend you to do it, but it's not, what's the word? Intuitive. It's not intuitive or displayed to the player. You just sort of have to figure it out. And again, I'm sure there are a lot of Zelda fans that like grew up with the original game that like it that way, but I'm not one of those guys. And then you get to the boss of that one, Thunderblight Ganon. I'm not kidding. It took me at least an hour to finish the dungeon. It took me another hour to beat Thunderblight Ganon. He's so fucking fast. And he hits you so hard at the beginning of the game. And you have to use an advanced, like, perfect guard maneuver in order to hit him during the first phase. And then during the second phase, he starts dropping lightning down, and then he starts shooting a laser. It's a mess. And just to say, Gerudo Temple is the one you should be doing last, because it is without a doubt the hardest one. But you do it, yay, and then you get like a cutscene with the Urbosa, the Gerudo champion of 100 years ago. And yeah, it took long enough, but this game has voice acting. It's okay. It's not horrible, but it's not exactly great either. You know, Nintendo has done worse and better. It's fine. Honestly, most of the champions' voices, I'm fine with them. They work. The only one that bothers me is Zelda. She sounds like too old for me. And, you know, the accent is not as fake as shit accent, but whatever. As a fan of Sonic and the Black Knight, I can live with that kind of thing. My problem with the champions is that they're so underutilized. You know, they show up for a cutscene at the beginning when you get to the area. They show up after you finish it to congratulate you, and that's really it. None of them they don't usually have that much of a character. They're not all that interesting. They don't have much to say. They feel kind of like a waste, and that extends to Zelda. From the Switch trailer, the Switch event in January, I was fully expecting Zelda to be an integral part of the main game's plot. No, she shows up in the flashbacks, which a lot of them are optional if you go out of your way to find them. besides that, she's mentioned at the beginning of the game as being at Hyrule Castle. You show up, she talks to you a little bit. You don't see her. She just talks to you saying like, oh, I can't hold Ganon in anymore. Then you have to fight Ganon. And then she gives you tips when you're fighting Ganon's second form. And then she shows up at the very end of the game just to be like, Link, you did it. It's a waste. And I was so ready for this Zelda to be the best Zelda in the series from that Switch event. Because there's like the scene where she's crying into Link's arms. And I was like, holy shit, this is emotion. This is good. That scene is optional. You don't have to see it. I missed it. I cannot believe they took something that important, assuming it's even part of an important context, and you don't have to see it. Why? So, yeah, at this point, if we're talking about best Zeldas in the series, like the character, I still say Skyward Sword has the best one. And before anyone says, oh, Tetra is the best one. Yeah, Tetra's great. The Zelda in Wind Waker is not. Skyward Sword still beats her out. Okay, the second area I visited was the Zoras, and the area, the Zora's domain, looks fantastic. I love the new designs for the Zora. You know, they're way better than Ocarina of Time's, although a lot of that has to do with just the higher graphics. I don't remember what the Zoras looked like in Twilight Princess. Just going by what Twilight Princess was, I'm going to assume that they were just HD versions of Ocarinas. And okay, the guys in the like main characters in this section of the game I like. There's Prince Sidon with his charming smile. I like him. I really do. Because he's just so friendly. He just sees Link and he's like, hey man. He's like, hey, you're the Hylian. We're looking for a Hylian. You're a Hylian. You want to help us? Yeah, all right, let's do it. And he's just so he's helpful. He's nice. I like him. And then there's the champion, the Zora champion, Mipha. She was probably the one with the most character because, you know, she likes Link, she loves him, sort of secretly. And you know, that's okay. Actually, I just realized that's the second time they've done that. Okay, maybe it's not so interesting. Yeah. So she has a bit of a good interaction with Link with her healing powers. You do have to get a clothing item here. You do need the Zora's armor to be able to swim up waterfalls. Then you need to get shock arrows to be able to get into the Divine Beast. This one's another pain because you have to go up to a Lionel, like a centaur, and you have to collect the shock arrows from his area. But he can hear, even if you're crouching down and like walking, he can hear you from like halfway across his area. So you have to be like super quiet, super careful. And, you know, maybe I should have bought, like, stealth stuff. That's probably my fault. But it took me so many tries to do it because he shoots shock arrows at you, but you can't collect them. Not that you'd be able to survive long enough to collect 20 of them anyway, despite the fact that you only need, like, 4 to be able to get in. The guy tells you, like, to get inside the Divine Beast, you're probably going to need, like, 20 shock arrows. So I'm like, okay, I'll get... They have like 23 in the area, so I'm like, okay, I'll get them all just so I have a couple extras in case I mess up. And then you need 4. They are useful against a Water Blight Ganon in that dungeon, so it is worth getting extras. And then there's this dungeon. The gimmick here is that it's an elephant, and you can move the trunk sprays water, and you can move the trunk up and down so that you change like. You can walk across the trunk if it's laid out flat, or if it's aiming in a certain area, it'll move a water wheel inside. It took me some time to figure out, but it is way less complex than the Gerudo one. And then the boss he gave me a little bit of trouble, but honestly, he's pretty easy. And then I didn't mention the ability, sorry. Instead of like getting a weapon in a dungeon that you use for that dungeon, for beating each dungeon, you get an ability from the champion that you can use at any time. So at the Gerudo one, you get Urbosa's Fury, which means that if you charge up an attack, if you charge up your slash and then release it, you'll unleash lightning down in a small radius from you, and it's super powerful and really useful. But, you know, you do have to charge up to be able to use it, and then after three shots, it has to recharge for a while. All of them have like a certain amount of uses and then a recharge period. How long it is depends on how useful it is. And Mipha's Grace is the most useful. It's auto life. You die, she just brings you right back, and she gives you a couple hearts past your maximum for your trouble. You know, they're temporary, but they're there. They're really useful. The only issue is that once you use it, it takes a really long time to recharge. So you can only get away with it once during a boss fight, because there's no way you're going to last long enough without killing the boss for it to recharge. But just out in the world, it's super useful. So Zora is a good choice to go first. Just I'd recommend buying like stealth gear in Kakariko Village first, just to survive that Lionel without too much trouble. Third place I went was the Ritos. I'm so happy to see them back, because Wind Waker is my favorite Zelda game, so seeing the species exclusive to that game come back is just a nice treat for me. And once again, they sort of got a redesign, like the more colorful, just the change from the Wind Waker art style definitely helped them. And then the main characters here, the champion, I don't remember his name. He's a fucking asshole, and it's not even all that charming. The only thing good I get out of it is, he's being an asshole at the beginning of you can't fly. I'm the best sharpshooter in all of Hyrule, but I have to protect you. All right, let's prove who's the best up in the sky. Oh wait, you can't get up there. What a loser. Only thing you get out of that is after you clear the Divine Beast and free his spirit, he's like, all right, like, you proved yourself. I'm proud of you. And honestly, I like that. But I really like the contrast of the guy that you rely on in the present. I don't remember his name. But, he's not humble, I guess, but he is way more helpful. He's good. I don't remember his name though. And then, without a doubt, this is the easiest dungeon. The gimmick is, the Divine Beast is a bird, and you can tilt it, like up or down. There's so few combinations that it can be. It doesn't take long to complete the dungeon. It's really, really simple. And then the boss, poor guy. So he takes a while because the only effective way I found of hitting him was with arrows. And those are sort of a scarce commodity if you're not buying a whole bunch of them. I still beat him. The problem was the middle of the arena has like the controls for the Divine Beast, which is like a flower pod sort of thing. It's large. And if you position yourself, you can use that thing to block basically all of his attacks, so there's no threat. In the second half of the fight, he'll like shoot out satellites that he'll like aim his shots at those to reflect off each other. But all you have to do is just run whenever he does that, and the shots will miss you. It's pathetic, but they make up for it with the fact that the ability you get is fucking worthless. You get the ability to like jump higher, like you can charge your jump and then jump higher, I guess. I never used it, because by the time I got there, I'd already explored basically all of Hyrule. I'd got all the towers, so I didn't really need huge leaps in height anymore. In hindsight, I'm starting to think of a couple areas where it would have been useful. You can call me an idiot. Okay, after this, instead of going straight to the fourth dungeon, I went to the north and I found the Lost Woods. And the Lost Woods always have a gimmick on like how you get through without getting lost. Without a doubt, this is the most obtuse and confusing one. Like, you Link to the Past. Link to the Past is just wander around, you'll find it. Link Between Worlds, like, okay, follow the real guy. Ocarina of Time is follow the music. This game is like you have to take a specific path through the trees, and if the fog starts to envelop you, you have to run back. It took me so long to figure it out. See, it was a pain, honestly. Like, there's no way to tell from a distance, like, when you walk down a path if the fog is going to start to envelop you. You just have to take that path and then run away if it turns out it's a bad idea. But your reward for getting through it is the Korok Woods. And again, as a Wind Waker fan, I'm happy to see the Koroks back. They look basically exactly the same. I like it, and that's also where you find the Great Deku Tree. What does he provide? Nothing special. The Master Sword. Yeah, odd thing considering the lore of every other Zelda game. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time the Master Sword has been optional. Like, I don't see any reason why you couldn't beat the game without getting the Master Sword. It's not that hard to get. You have to you have to get through the Lost Woods first. And then they bring back the Zelda 1 idea where you have to have enough heart containers in order to pick up a sword. I got lucky. You need 13 hearts to pick up the Master Sword, and I had 12 when I first got there. And the Koroks provide 3 shrines, which you get... Oh, I guess I didn't explain the Spirit Orbs. You complete a shrine, you get a Spirit Orb. And then once you have 4 of them, you can trade them in at goddess statues for either a heart container or extra stamina. So, they gave me 3 of them. I found 1 more on my own, got another heart container. Master Sword is mine. It's not quite the fuck everything up sword like it was in previous games, because if you use it too much, it has its own durability. It doesn't break, thank God, but it loses its power, and then you have to wait 10 minutes for it to recharge. I never let it get to that point, because I used it sparingly. And besides, normally it has 30 power, which, it's fine, but it's not exactly the best you're going to have. But when you get inside dungeons, it bumps up to 60, which is really good. Especially considering it's not a super heavy weapon. So when you're in dungeons, and like I said, there's no enemies in dungeons, so it's basically just for the bosses, it's really useful, but other than that, just use one of your other swords. Oh yeah, speaking of things that are optional, as far as I'm aware, the green tunic just isn't in the game normally. You can color your clothes to make them whatever color you want, but the only way to get the traditional tunic, as far as I'm aware, is scanning in an amiibo, and even then, that's not guaranteed. I have a Toon Link amiibo. I scanned it in once just to see what it would do, and all I got was a weapon that wasn't all that useful and a bunch of fish. Not that it matters, because I actually really like the design of Link's new outfit in this game. For most of the game, the traditional outfit is a pair of pants that's you can put that wherever you want. Most of them have good defense. The champion shirt, which is the blue one that he wears in all the promotional materials, and then a hood. That's not mandatory, but the hood gave me the best defense, so I used it. I like the way it looks, so I didn't bother recoloring it. I like the way Link looks in blue. That's also the reason I like the New Game Plus second quest in Wind Waker, where you play the entire thing in his blue pajamas. It's just a color that works. Whatever, I said all I need to say about it. And then finally, I took on the Goron Temple. Again, you have to worry about weather when you go there, but the issue is, I went in there okay, it's hot. I already have heat-resistant clothing, so I'm fine. There's 2 tiers of heat resistance. There's just ordinary heat resistance, and then there's flame resistance, which you need an elixir or special clothing to deal with that separately. That feels like it's being pedantic, because as far as I'm aware, there's no equivalent on the cold side. If you jump in cold water, there is a freezing state, but the game explicitly tells you that nothing you do can prepare you for that. If you get in freezing water, you're just screwed. So having to get an entirely different set of clothes to deal with the heat in the Death Mountain just feels like an extra step that didn't need to be there. Alright, the Goron champion Daruk. I remember his name because he is awesome. It's sort of similar to the sages in Ocarina of Time, how Darunia is the only one I liked. Because, I guess I like Saria, kind of. But, the Gorons are awesome just because they're so friendly. They're yeah, brother, what's up? They're manly and tough, but in that cool way. I like it. Unibo, the other main character, the one you're accompanying, he's fine. He's not really a wimp, but kind of useless. But, he's heart. He has heart. And it gives a great moment when you clear the dungeon, when Daruk's spear comes out, and he's like, I wonder how the Gorons are doing. And he sees Unibo, and he's like, I guess they're doing fine. And Unibo waves at him. He, holds out his fist. And it's actually a really good moment that I wish the other dungeons had. Just sort of interaction between the generations. Alright, the dungeon. It's another easy one. This is the one with the least transformation. It's either the Divine Beast is flat or it's turned 90 degrees. But it still took me a while to figure out how you did certain things. Ew, dungeon isn't hard. Boss, kind of didn't need to worry about because I had the Master Sword. Rips him apart. Especially, I hear like there's a part in the second phase that's confusing, but once he got into it, he swung at me, I dodged it. And then there's a mechanic where if you barely dodge an attack, then you get the opportunity to like wail on them for a little bit. So I dodge an attack before he gets to the real meat of his second phase, and I get the ability to just slash at him repeatedly with the Master Sword, and it took him out before I even had to see it. So I guess if you really want to do like a bunch of shrines and not deal with dungeons, if you want to do that, then I recommend getting the Master Sword before you do anything, because it'll just make the rest of the game so much easier. Alright, and then after that you go to Hyrule Castle. Getting there is a pain. Because Guardians. There's Guardians everywhere. These are like, I mean, you know what the Guardians are. They have amiibos, for God's sake. And some of them can't move. Some of them can. You see a lot of moving ones on the Hyrule Castle grounds. And if they see you, they'll like aim on you with a laser and they can hit you from really far. And if the laser hits you, it does a lot of damage. And there are arrows that can take them out in one hit. And you have the ability, if you complete a side quest, you have the ability to buy more of them. I didn't do that, so I only had like 5 going in, and then I missed once. So I didn't have much of an opportunity. I had to dodge a lot. And, thank God for Mipha's grace to save me, my idiot ass. So getting there was a real pain, and then I was really scared because I got to the entrance to Hyrule Castle. Well, I got onto the Hyrule Castle grounds, and it just automatically gave you the 3D map. And it was huge. I was like, oh shit, there's so much. But no, there's a lot of optional stuff. Here, the Hylian shield is in there. I didn't bother to get it. Because there is a warp point in the Hyrule Castle grounds, but you got to fight the Guardians to get to it. So I didn't want to do that. So basically, once I got to Hyrule Castle, I was like, I'm not risking anything. I just want to get I don't want to have to go through all that again. I'm just getting straight up to the castle. And once you get up to the entrance, there's nothing else to worry about. It's just the fight with Ganon. Yeah, getting there was a pain. I barely survived it. But thankfully, by that point, I had so many meals cooked that health was no longer an issue. Ganon. Final boss of the game. The huge calamity that they've been hyping up the whole game. Well, first off, doing the dungeons does have a very tangible reward. Right as the fight starts, they take off half his health. It doesn't really matter because it's the first phase. I probably would have been fine. If I was allowed to take out the first half of his health and then they took care of the rest, I'd be much, much better off. Because during the second phase, he just turns invincible. It's kind of a pain, and it's kind of hard to figure out what you're supposed to do. The idea is that you need to dodge his attacks because he has like a super short window after he attacks where he's vulnerable. So if you do a flurry rush, then you'll easily get in there. But his attacks can be very hard to dodge, and he can do a lot of damage. So, use attack up boosting items, eat a lot of food. And it shouldn't be too hard to get with, and that was to get through it. And it was actually a pain, that realization that the very first boss I fought in the game was the hardest one. Yeah, Ganon, I understand part of it was just by the end of the game I had stronger weapons. I didn't really have that much more defense, but I had more hearts, so that was handy. But still, the final boss of the game should still be the hardest one, even with that. So, if the rest of the game earlier did less damage, then I'd say it would have been fine. But of course, that's not it. He turns into the giant dark beast that you're familiar with from older Zelda games. The classic Ganon. And I was really worried because I'm like, oh god, this is going to be a pain. No, easiest fight in the game. Your horse comes over, which I actually question what happens if you don't bother to get a horse, because that's optional. I tamed an easy one and I named him Mr. Ed. I was going to name him Horsing Around, but they don't give you enough room for that. And I figured that naming him Bojack would be too easy. And then my sister reminded me that the character's name on Horsing Around was the horse, and I realized I could have fit that. But, my idiocy, I suppose. So Mr. Ed isn't exactly a great horse in terms of his stats, but Ganon doesn't move. All you have to do is just ride around him. Zelda gives you the light bow. you shoot at glowing points on him that he does nothing to defend against. Sometimes he'll shoot a giant laser in front of him, but it's super easy to dodge because he only shoots it directly in front of him. And then you have one final hit where you have to shoot into his eye, and I tried to do that from the horse for like a couple minutes before Zelda just outright told me, use the updraft to ride up. And I swear the only reason they did that was because when you shoot your arrow in the air, the game goes to slow motion to give you room to aim. So the only reason they put that final shot up in the air was so it would be a slow-mo hit for the final shot. You destroy Ganon, he fades away. I think the clouds, the ominous clouds disappear. Zelda appears, and I'm not kidding, all she says is, Link, you did it. You remember me, right? And then the game just ends. Credits start rolling. Let me ask this. If you do get all the memories, like you find all the recall points, you get all the memories, is there anything else there? Because that is a horribly unsatisfying ending. Like I said before, I was expecting this Zelda to be the best one in the series, and then she does not do shit. But I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt and say that I didn't do enough, which is also annoying because it can't be. You get pictures to show you where all these recall points are, but unless you're intimately familiar with Hyrule, then it's going to be really hard to find them all. And you can scan for them, but it would still only appear as a scan point once you get close. So it just kind of seems like a pain, and I guess it's worth doing if you want to see character development, but having the meat of your character be optional is really dumb. And that's it. That was the entire game. I feel like this. Oh yeah, I did have a couple questions I wanted to ask now that I finished it, just for closure. Anyone else who beat the game? Is 15 a normal defense amount? Because I was talking the whole time about how much damage enemies do. I told you the clothes I had. Is that the best defense you get during the game? Because I never found anything with higher values. I guess if you find the rest of the Great Fairy Fountains, they can upgrade your clothes to give you better defense, which is probably a worthwhile thing to do. But I only ever found the one that the game told me to do. So again, the same thing with the recall points, the flashbacks. If this thing that is super... I guess you can say the same thing about the Master Sword or the Hylian Shield. This thing that is super useful for the rest of the game, it's not it's not ultra useful. It's not like a super weapon. It's just a handy thing. The fact that that stuff is optional and easy to miss rubs me the wrong way. So, Zelda Breath of the Wild. This game, it took 5 years since Skyward Sword. How is it? I was sort of going into it with the expectation of all the reviews. This is the greatest game ever made. I think now, still on Metacritic, it's still the second highest rated game ever made. It was fine. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Favorite Zelda game? No. My absolute favorite Zelda game is still Wind Waker. My second favorite is still Skyward Sword. Maybe this game gets third place. I don't know. It's been 3 years since I played A Link Between Worlds. That was my previous third place. Maybe this game has it. I don't know. I'd say Link Between Worlds has the better approach to non-linear dungeon design. Or at least. But yeah, this game, it's been hyped for us for so long. Us Wii U owners probably bought the system waiting for a brand new Zelda game, and then it's the final game getting released for it. Again, the Skyward Sword is kind of the same thing, but at least Twilight Princess was there at launch. And yeah, it is most certainly good. It convinced me of an open world. I don't like those kinds of games, but I really enjoyed this world. If it's done well and it has a bunch of stuff to do, an open world can be fun. So I'm very impressed that they managed to take an idea I wasn't down with and convince me of it by doing it really well. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still just not the sort of thing I prefer in games. And I hope the next Zelda game goes back to the more linear design of the early 3D Zelda games, if only because making these sorts of games has got to be really time consuming, and I don't want to have to I know 5 years is sort of a standard gap for Zelda games, but I don't want to have to wait that long.